Listen, that's crispy right there. This little piece here, that's called chef's privilege. What's happening, guys? I am Jet Tila, and this is Ready Jet Cook, where I break down the core techniques of Asian cuisine from shop to finish. Peking duck is a culinary jewel of Chinese cuisine, and growing up, it always felt like a delicacy. Today, I'm gonna show you a life hack that's gonna change the game and pack all that Peking duck flavor into a 1-hour at-home recipe. And to top it off, we're gonna serve it up with a fluffy bun called guabao. This is gonna be a Tila treat. But before we get into this, please make sure to subscribe so you can keep up with more of my favorite recipes. We've got a full plate today, so let's make sure we're stocked with the basics. Peking duck is a labor of love. There are entire restaurants dedicated to doing nothing but Peking duck because it takes like 2 to 3 days to get that crispy skin and that deliciousness. I'm gonna show you a Peking duck-ish process, and the secret is using duck breast instead of a whole duck. Hey Carmen, can I get that duck please? Thank you so much. All right, so when purchasing duck breast, I'm looking for a few things specifically, right? Number one, I want the skin to be almost like creamy, white, pale in color. I want the duck breast to look moist, smells super clean, which means it's very fresh. And then on the backside, on the breast side, you're looking for a really nice ruby red color. There's a sheen here from the duck breast. All this means it's really clean. If you've never cooked with duck breast, the fat is what we really cherish from the duck. So don't ever trim that out. I'm gonna show you how to score the breast, render the fat, but keep all that delicious crispy skin. Depending on the store, duck breast isn't something they carry all the time, so you might end up buying frozen duck breast instead of fresh, like this. That's fine. Take the duck breast home, open the package, let it thaw in the refrigerator until it gets nice and pliable. Once you thaw your frozen duck breast, leave it uncovered in the fridge. It'll help with extra crispy skin. I promise, duck is not as daunting as you think. So before we leave, we need to pick up some cake flour for the baos. Cake flour versus all-purpose flour comes down to protein content. So lower protein content makes for a softer chew, or what we call crumb, in the bao. It makes a great pillowy bao. Time to check out and get cooking. All right, so let's talk game plan, team. First, I'm gonna make the fluffy guabao, and then I'm tackling our duck breast to get that perfect crispy Peking duck skin before putting it all together. So guabao is an open sandwich style bao, and we've made baos together. We've made char siu bao, which is that Chinese barbecue pork stuffed inside the bun, then steamed. Very similar dough. So to make my bao dough, I'm gonna start by combining all the dry ingredients. So I have cake flour, sugar, baking powder, and some yeast. We're gonna give this a good mix to distribute the sugar, the flour, and the yeast so it all comes together nice and evenly. Now I'm gonna slowly pour in my water. So as it comes together, any flour that's left on the side, I'll just stop and scrape it into the center. I'm gonna knead that for about 8 to 10 minutes until it's soft and smooth. Now that it's kneaded into a nice soft ball, I'm gonna add shortening and continue to knead for about 3 to 5 minutes. So the shortening will richen up this dough, give it some nice flavor, but also give it a nice shine. What I'm looking for is the dough ball to hold together, but still be really soft. So I've placed it in an oiled bowl. I'm gonna cover it tightly and allow it to double in size at room temperature, and it should take about 90 minutes. Let's get it onto my board. Punch the air out. So I'm gonna form the dough into a rectangle about a 1/2 inch thick. So I'm taking the edges from the long side and just pulling it nice and evenly. Similar to a scallion pancake, I'm gonna roll this into a nice even log. So with the log formed nice and even, I'm gonna cut this into 2-inch wide pieces. I'm basically looking for about 8 or 9 pieces. I'm flattening each one out into an oval And at this point, I want you to kind of imagine that bun. See how that closes up and makes like a little sandwich bow? A little assist with the rolling pin to spread it out. A few drops of oil in there. And I like the oil because once I fold it over, it's gonna act as a barrier from the bun to stick together. We're gonna close it off, grab a piece of parchment paper, and you've got your first gua bao. Making these baos at home are pretty rewarding. It's also a fun activity to do with the kids. I mean, on the flip side, if you're like, bro, I don't have the time, you could buy these frozen and just steam them up and still make these amazing Peking duck buns. I want you to think about these bao buns as your new favorite slider bun. In the Asian world, I would stuff them with fried chicken, pork belly, teriyaki, but you really can use these for anything. They are pretty delicious for any slider. And if you're vegetarian, I would do barbecue tofu, I would do seitan. You could also just stuff them with really amazing vegetables. So let's set up the steamer for the gua bao. I'm using a 10-inch pan. I'm gonna pour about 2 to 3 inches of water in there and start that to the boil. With a 10-inch pan, you want a 10-inch set of bamboo steamers. You see how that nests perfectly? You could do a 12-inch steamer, make sure you have a 12-inch pan, etc., etc. These bamboo steamers are super economical. If you love Asian food, you definitely should have a set in your house for steaming fish, steaming vegetables, even desserts. What we're looking for is a really tight seal from the edge of the steamer to the pan, because you want to keep the steam inside instead of having it leak out. So be very careful loading these bao in, because steam can be very hot. So here's the first layer. You just want to make sure that there's space in between each bao for the steam to push through. That's perfect. I've got a nice layer of space in between for the steam to come up. And these are gonna steam for about 5 to 8 minutes until they're bouncy. All right, let's check out our baos. Woo, look at that. Now these are pretty hot to the touch, so do be careful. So what you're looking for is the bao to be springy to the touch. They'll opens up, ready for that duck. And look at that, cakey, soft, delicious. It is perfect. All right, so my bao buns are all steamed up. It's time to pack that Peking duck flavor and texture into our duck breast. Peking duck was the fancy food from my childhood. Growing up, we only went out for Peking duck on super special occasions. I really didn't even get to try it until I was a teenager. If you've got a Chinatown or a Peking duck restaurant in your area, do yourself a favor and give it a shot, because the process is really difficult. It can take up to 24 to 48 hours to air dry the skin, marinate it correctly, and then roast it to get that perfect crispy exterior. I'm gonna show you a way to mimic that effect in 1 hour. Let's start by making this glaze. So we're starting with oyster sauce, a little bit of soy sauce, chicken powder, obviously. You're gonna see 5-spice in a lot of places, because in real Peking duck, 5-spice goes into the duck, it goes into the glaze, and also the sauce. And the sugary binder here that's gonna help coat this onto the duck skin is gonna be honey. Once we throw the duck into the oven, the sugar in this glaze is gonna crackle on like candy and make the skin crispy. This super sweet mix is going to adhere to the duck and really take it to the next level. So the glaze over the skin is done. I'm gonna make a spice rub to season the duck with now. It's pepper, sugar, salt, and here's more 5-spice powder. This is one of my go-to seasonings for any protein. Really great on duck. All right, so let's start on the duck. A really nice way to get extra crispy duck breast is to let it air dry in your fridge for a day before you start to score and cook it. So I'm simply just using a blade to score the skin. Think about the skin being a balloon, and instead of air, there's a good amount of fat. By scoring the skin, you're opening up the skin for all the fat that's under it to come out. I love Peking duck so much, but I don't always have 48 hours and an air compressor to inflate the skin, forced air oven. So this was a way to get very crispy skin on a duck and get that Peking duck experience, but in a very short amount of time. Anyone who cooks a lot of duck breast we'll score the skin to get that skin to render and make it super crispy. You can kind of see I'm not going all the way through to the actual breast. I'm just opening up that skin to let the fat render out. I'm gonna be super generous with the seasoning because there's things like sugar and 5-spice powder. It's not just salt and pepper. So really work that into the skin. This opens up the skin a little bit. As you can see, it gets the salt in there to pull out even more moisture. And then I like to season the board and drag the duck breast into the board. And that's how you get amazing seasoning on both sides. I'm ready to wash my hands and get my pan hot. Another great chef tip for crispy duck skin is a cold start in the pan instead of hot. Usually we get the pan screaming hot, put some oil in, and then start searing. We're gonna do the opposite. The pan is still on the cool side. I'm gonna lay the duck breast down, and I'm gonna allow that duck breast to come up slowly, and that's gonna render all that fat that's stuck between the top of the skin and that bottom of the skin by the breast. You gotta listen to the pan. I'm hearing a little bit of sizzle happen, and that means the duck is starting to render. And you could actually see it. Check out the fat that's starting to pool around the skin. The reason you're removing the fat is gonna be a barrier to really crispy skin. One more tip that I use is adding cinnamon and star anise to the pan, because this is the cinnamon and star anise that would be in the cavity of Peking duck while it's roasting. This basically perfumes Peking duck, and putting it in the pan now and getting the fat in there is gonna help perfume the duck breast. Really good cooking requires the 5 senses, right? I need to see how things are searing. I need to hear the pan. I need to feel how the duck is cooking. I can feel how hot the pan is. Your sense of smell is connected to your sense of taste. You think you're basically smelling and tasting, but I think you're using all of your senses all the time. I've already got about a 1/4 cup of fat coming out of the skin. I can start checking now how the browning is going. Look how gorgeous that skin is coming, and it's already getting crispy. So after about 2 minutes, I'm gonna flip the breast over and start brushing my first layer of glaze. I'm being very deliberate to get the brush onto the skin, having it soak into all those pockets. I'm not trying to get the glaze into the pan because there's so much sugar in here, it could start to burn. But I'm just painting and pushing the glaze into that skin. Do not discard duck fat. It is liquid gold in the kitchen. All right, I'm gonna put these duck breasts into the oven at 400 degrees for 6 to 8 minutes. Oh, that looks fantastic. One last brush of the glaze will lock in that deliciousness and make sure it's extra crispy. I've cooked these duck breasts for about 6 to 8 minutes, but the best way to check duck temperature is put a thermometer in the middle of the duck and look for 125 to 130. That's medium rare. Let's put these duck breasts on our station here. I need 2 bows for right now. All right, y'all, it's about that time. So to slice these duck breasts, man, listen, that's crispy right there. So I'm just going to slice these breasts on a small angle. That warm pink, medium rare, coast to coast, that is perfect. Nice straight blocks, not too thin, not too thick. I hate when duck breast is cut too thin because it loses its temperature so fast, and leaving it a little thick keeps it nice and moist. This little piece here, that's called chef's privilege. To build these bao, I'm gonna place a center cut piece of duck breasts in here, a little bit of cucumber, some scallion curls, and I'm gonna put a tiny bit of hoisin. One more. I mean, look at that duck peeking through. So sexy. All right, one thing left to do. That bao is sweet, pillowy, and soft. It's got the perfect amount of chew. The duck is crispy on the skin, but it melts in your mouth in the middle. Crunchy cold cucumbers, the alum flavor of the scallions, that hoisin sauce. This is killer. All right, friends, whether you make a component of this recipe or do the whole thing through, please throw me a comment down below and tell me how it turned out. I'm gonna see you back here really soon for another episode of Ready, Jet, Cook.